aloud for you from my novella Goddess, Chapter 35. Maddie's thoughts returned to the present, and she glanced down to see Lady Venus's reaction. But Lady Venus's face remained an impassive mask. At one point, she glanced up at her, smiled, then focused her gaze on the road ahead. A moment passed, then, "Maddie?" "Yes, Lady Venus?" And suddenly, it was Helen's voice speaking softly to her, as gently as she used to call out to Maddie on trips home, when she'd speak into the darkness and say, "Maddie?" "Yes, Mommy? Do you want to come sit up here with me?" And of course, every time Helen offered, Maddie happily climbed up from the back seat and hoisted one leg into the space between her parents in the front seat, and then scooted and shimmied around over her mother's lap until she'd reached the passenger seat. And Helen unbuckled her seatbelt and held it over Maddie's waist as she slid into the seat beside her mother. And once Maddie was snuggled in tight beside her, Helen snapped the seatbelt securely, containing both of them within the seatbelt, with Maddie's left hip on her mother's lap and her right hip half pressed up against the passenger side door, and the voice that called out to her now sounded so very much like her mother's that her throat filled with tears. "Madeline?" She wiped the tears off her cheeks. "Yes, Lady Venus?" Lady Venus pointed above her head. "Tell me the names of the stars in the night sky." It'd been years since Maddie had ever spent any amount of time gazing up at the night sky or identifying the constellations. But for some strange reason, as Lady Venus pointed to each constellation in the night sky, one by one, the names of the constellations instantly bubbled into Maddie's mind, and she told Lady Venus their names. She pointed up to the first constellation she recognized. "Lady Venus?" "Yes, Madeline?" "Up there, right above us, that's Orion. You can see his 3-starred belt, and he's clutching his shield in his left hand." "What star forms the right shoulder point of Orion?" Madeline scrunched her eyebrows together deep in thought. Is it Betelgeuse?" "Yes, very good. Now tell me what else you see." "Well, right there, below Orion, Rigel forms the bottom right side of his tunic. And I can see Taurus over to Orion's right, and right there, right below Orion, is Lepus. Oh, and Lady Venus, oh my goodness, there's the Big Dipper, as big and as bold as anything I've ever seen before in my life. Right there, do you see?" And Lady Venus pointed. "Yes?" "Nestled up right there between the Big and the Little Dipper. Do you see him?" "Yes, oh yes, Lady Venus, I do see him. That's Draco the dragon, and his long tail is sweeping with a languorous ease between the two dippers." "Wonderful, wonderful," Lady Venus said. "You are quite proficient." Maddie gazed up into the crystal clear blackness of the sky. "I rather like looking up into the stars. All dreamers do. Am I a dreamer?" "Oh, but not anymore." "No? Are you sure?" "Yes, I'm afraid so. I used to dream back when I was young." Lady Venus fell silent for a long moment. Maddie wondered at herself. How in the world did she know these constellations? Freshman astronomy had been many years earlier. And when was the last time she'd spent such a rapturous night gazing up into the night sky? And why did all the constellations now sparkle at her in such vibrant, lovely relief? Over the many years, she'd forgotten the names of the constellations, but tonight their names tripped off her tongue as if she made it a daily practice to gaze up at the night sky. She felt so deliriously happy. Her eyes blurred with tears. She blinked. The stars grew fuzzy. "What's wrong?" Lady Venus asked. "What's wrong, Lady Venus? You're asking me what's wrong?" Maddie laughed through her tears. "Out of all the possible people that you could have chosen, why did you pick me?" The tears spilled unbidden down her cheeks. "What's so magical about me?" Lady Venus craned her neck around to gaze up at Madeline. A look of unspeakable tenderness filled her brown eyes. "You still don't see it, do you, dear?" "I don't see what?" "Can't you tell, my dear? Can't you tell what's magical about you?" "No, I can't." Lady Venus fell silent a moment, then shook her head with regret. "You can't see it yet," she said quietly. Maddie said nothing. "You can't see it yet, but you will in the fullness of time." "If you say so," Maddie said with a negligent wave of her hand, clearly indicating to Lady Venus how thoroughly she did not believe a word that Lady Venus was saying. Lady Venus mused, her brow furrowed. "Well, my dear, we've got an extraordinary evening ahead of us, and I'm sure that at the end of it, the knowledge will come to you." In a lower voice that perhaps she wasn't meant to hear, Lady Venus said, "I certainly hope she'll see it." Maddie fretted. What was it she needed to see? What was it she needed to do? And when it happened, would she know what to do? Lady Venus had reached the outskirts of Indianapolis. She took the exit to downtown. Maddie thought Lady Venus planned on quizzing her further on the constellations, but she surprised her by taking a different tack. "Tell me, Madeline, do you know how thick my thighs are?" Maddie chortled. "Do I know what?" "It's a simple question, Madeline, my love. Do you know how thick my thighs are?" "Oh, Lady Venus, I have no idea how thick your thighs are, nor is it any business of mine." Lady Venus chuckled. "I rather suspected that you didn't know, but I thought I'd ask anyway." "It's an odd thing to ask me, really." "Yes, I suppose it is, but did you know that the circumference of my right thigh is 54 inches? "No, I can't say that I did." "Think of that, Madeline." "I'm having a hard time imagining it." "One of my thighs is 2 times wider than your tiny little waist." "Oh, my." Nobody in their right mind would say that Madeline's waist was tiny. But compared to Lady Venus's, well, yes, she supposed that her waist was smaller compared to Lady Venus's thigh, to be sure. But for goodness sakes, Lady Venus was an Amazon, a queen. There was absolutely no sense in comparing her dimensions to those of Lady Venus's. Lady Venus continued. and my right foot is 24 inches long. Can you imagine how hard a time I'd have of it if I went shopping for shoes? And here I thought a size 9 shoe was hard to find. You are petite and dainty, Madeline scoffed. Ha! Lady Venus tut-tutted under her breath. My dear, you wouldn't believe the number of women who squeeze into ill-fitting shoes. Shameful, just shameful. Maddie recalled the last time she'd gone shoe shopping. Although she knew full well that she wore a size 9, to her infinite embarrassment, she did try to squeeze into a size 8.5. She'd only done it because the shoe didn't come in a size 9. Ah, Lady Venus said, and Maddie flushed with shame. Lady Venus spoke. Have you ever taken a close look at my big toe on my right foot? It's 2.5 inches long. That's a big toe, all right, Maddie said. And my left bicep is 36 inches wide. My left bicep is wider than your hips. Think of that, Madeline. And my waist, my lovely slender waist, 58 inches. Isn't that interesting? Maddie said. And my hips, Maddie, my hips are 80 inches wide. Maddie nodded, not quite certain what to say. What response did Lady Venus want from her? And what could she possibly say without being rude? Wow, that's huge? Wow, you really are one gigantic monster of a woman? Not at all a complimentary thing to say to a goddess. And yet, Lady Venus wouldn't take offense at such a comment. As a matter of fact, Lady Venus would be pleased, for while she was indeed enormous, she was also inexplicably beautiful. Only, what was Lady Venus getting at with this line of questioning? Lady Venus cleared her throat. The areole of my breast is 3 inches wide. Think on that, Madeline. A lot of frat boys know that already. Madeline quipped. Lady Venus chuckled. Well, they do know a lot about me, but they don't know that. She giggled. Whenever IU wins a big basketball game, they dump laundry detergent into the fountain. I don't think it's very nice of them to do that, Madeline said with a repressive frown. Oh, it's not so bad, Lady Venus said with an airy smile. It cleans my jets.